Fair.
Iyalah, saya sabi in KL. Hey Kai.
Hey, are the cats joining us for
Yeah,
Q&A?
can you see a cat as well?
1 second. Are those the new AirPods Max?
Yeah.
How are they?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, so this is going on record. All right. So one guy's here. This guy's sleeping here. Hey, where's she going?
Man.
This one is sleeping there.
Oh,
And then
having a chill afternoon.
Eh?
Oh my gosh, those monitors. Look at those monitors.
I have
That's a
it's a triple monitor setup. Yeah.
every software engineer aspires to.
Where did the last cat go? It's okay though.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe before we get started, maybe I can just give you a brief introduction on who the students are and what.
Everyone's here already?
Not everyone's here. There'll be roughly 10 or so students joining us today. A few are still in class and coming out, and a few will be joining in a few minutes. But basically, more or less, everyone is a career switcher. Roughly, either actually we have some students, maybe 2 or 3 students who are in between high school and uni, JC and uni. And so they're getting ahead, they're trying to get internships during uni, and so they're doing a boot camp in front. And then but the majority of students are career switchers. So went to uni, graduated from something other than computer science, from accounting to political science to mechanical engineering and psychology, and have been working for 1 or more years. And most people are like average age maybe is around 30 or slightly less. And trying to switch into the tech industry, realize there's more potential in software engineering, and join the bootcamp to make that switch. Hey guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is that?
So and there's a combination of students from both batch 1 and batch 2. So batch 1 is they start in October, and they're graduating actually tomorrow. It's the last day of the course, so they're kind of full on, almost pretty much full on in job mode right now.
Sure.
After they finish their final project. And then there's the other half of the students are from batch 2, which is which started in January and is graduating in June.
Nice.
Yeah. So they're kind of halfway through the process, but already starting to think. They're already doing interview prep, like all the algorithm stuff, and thinking about how best to kind of get jobs like software engineering jobs at Xfers and
Sure.
so on, tech companies. Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Great. Awesome. So thanks, everyone. I think more or less people are here. Also, Akira is here. Akira is Rocket Academy's head of education.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's the partner in crime. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. And great. So I think more or less everyone is here. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Aizat briefly. Thanks so much, Aizat, for being here today.
My pleasure.
Aizat is a good friend. He is currently working at Xfers as an engineering manager. Xfers is a fintech platform in Southeast Asia. And Aizat has been working at Xfers for the last almost 2 years, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, no, 1 year and 4 months, 5 months?
A year and 4 months? Yeah. And prior to that, Aizat was working at Facebook in California, where Aizat can share more about that experience after. It's kind of a long experience, because Aizat worked at Facebook in California, in Canada before that. And before that, he started at Facebook in Malaysia.
Yes, correct.
Interestingly, about Aizat's background, which is relevant to us, Aizat is a self-taught programmer. So he learned programming on his own. He started out working at local tech companies in Malaysia, at various agencies and startups, and kind of was very motivated and driven and kept learning. And at one point, somehow the opportunity came to apply to Facebook in Malaysia. Aizat took it, got the job, and then his Facebook journey started. And then now he's come back to Southeast Asia after working in California, because he wants to give back to the ecosystem, wants to help build the ecosystem, both in Malaysia, but also in the region. And so I think Aizat's doing a great job of that in his current role in Xfers, and excited. I hope some of us get the opportunity to work together with Aizat in the future, but if not, hope to learn from Aizat's experiences and how he goes about learning. I think is something that I hope that we can take away as well. Great. Thanks, Aizat, for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure is mine. Great to see you and your group of students growing, man.
Woo!
Yeah, very happy to see this. Yeah. Actually, just for if it was not, I'm not mistaken, I was the one who gave you the name for the company. Also.
Yes, Aizat and I were having dinner at Lau Pa Sat
Yeah,
like
Lafayette, yeah.
a year and a half ago, and we were eating thunder tea rice, and we were like, oh, what should we name this company? And then Aizat was like, how about something futuristic, like, you know, space? And I was like, oh yeah, like rocket school, space academy. And then Rocket Academy was the only one that had a domain available. So
works out.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, thank you for the introduction. Not exactly sure where to begin. I have a bunch of things I can show, a bunch of pictures, but in a gist, I'm 30. I think just to set some context straight. So I'm 35 right now. Well, 35 in July. I started high school. I started learning programming in high school. So this is like 2003. So I started learning programming in high school in 2003, but I'm just a terrible student. I learned about myself. I don't like theory. I much prefer practical. So I failed programming in high school. I almost flunked out of high school as well. But after high school, I got a job as an IT guy. I thought I'd be fixing computers. I like computers naturally, so it was a normal thing. So I got started as fixing computers, and eventually they asked me to learn to build them a system. And back then it was PHP. So they gave me this fake PHP book, and I was told, hey, can you help build a system for us? I was like, all right, I guess. I told them I failed programming in high school. I'll try this again. So I tried it again now. But I think the biggest difference is now I had a reason to build something instead of just doing assignments. So that was what really motivated me. When I was actually building stuff, getting people to use it, it's like, oh, okay. I could feel the impact of my work versus say assignments, right? So I thought that was really the coolest part. Eventually, I got into college, and I got to college, but the 6 months of coding on my own, building stuff on my own, it was more exciting in college. You get to build stuff and deploy stuff. Why am I going to college to even learn programming? I already know the basics. So I actually ventured outside. I joined the open source community back in 2005, the PHP community back in 2005. And that really helped to launch my career. I got freelance projects. Rails became popular in 2006, 2007. So I picked up Ruby on Rails then. Eventually, fast forward a little bit, 2010, Facebook acquires a little known Malaysian company with 2 engineers on it. It was February 2010. It was like Facebook's 3rd or 4th acquisition. So this is pretty new for Facebook as well. Everyone in Malaysia was like, who is this little company? We've never heard of this company before. It was called Octazen. Yep. So, I can just show. So it was called Octazen, and none of us knew what to do with that. So where is my screen? Oh yeah, right here. So I've also have a bunch of pictures to share with you guys as well. Yeah. So Facebook acquired a company called Octazen back in February 2010, and we're all wondering what is going on. Who is this little company? None of us had any information about this. And then come April or May, there's a job opening for Facebook Malaysia. My friends tell me I was nervous, worried about applying. So I'm a college dropout. I didn't finish college. And here I am competing against the greatest minds in the world, right? So you're talking about Harvard students, MIT, Stanford students. I was like, imposter syndrome. So, all right, let's just try applying. I applied, and somehow I made it through the process. I got the job at Facebook Malaysia. I was stunned because I was, never finished college, don't have any professional qualifications whatsoever. So I was a little bit stunned about that. But when I joined, I put these engineers on a pedestal. But when I joined, I realized, you know what? Most of them are okay. There are some bright engineers. Don't get me wrong. There are some really bright engineers, but on average, they're all right. I can actually compete against them. They're not, I could do this lah. I could do this. So I joined Facebook in June 2010. Eventually moved to Vancouver in November 2013, and then San Francisco in October 2014, and then leaving Facebook in June 2016. Yeah. So my time at Facebook, let me see if I have some slides for you. So this is probably the slide you guys want to see. So that's me and Zuck. Me and Zuck.
Classic.
This is back in October 2010. Right after. So this signage here is what we call the lockdown sign. Facebook was in lockdown for 1 month because we were worried about this rumored competitor that Google was going to launch that was going to wipe us off the map. Anyone want to take a guess what that competitive product was?
Google Plus.
Yes, Google Plus. Yeah, we were worried about Google Plus would be killing us. So Facebook was in lockdown to work on our Facebook Groups product. We were locked down for a month. There was food over the weekend. They typically don't have food over the weekend, but food served over the weekend, really to double down and make sure we deliver a quality product. Yeah, but well, we all know where Google Plus is right now. So Facebook did a good job in eliminating the competition. Yeah. So that's one picture. Let me see. Do I have it here? Right. So just a quick summary of what I worked on. I was on the growth team. When I joined Facebook, Facebook had shy of 500 million users. When I left Facebook, Facebook had 2 billion users. So within 6 years, Facebook grew. It may sound like just 4x, but that 4x is 1.5 billion users. And that's the goal of the growth team. The goal of the growth team is to increase the number of users on the platform through getting new users, through resurrections, through increasing engagement. That is the goal of the growth team. And within the growth team, I was involved in 2 projects. So the first one is the contact importer. Can I just hide some of this stuff? It's fine.
It's okay, we can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was on 2 main projects. The first one is the contact importer. The contact importer, this was really crucial for Facebook's growth. Back in the day, well, we're talking 2010 here. The only way for someone to, what's the story again? So the way what Facebook discovered was you would only stay on Facebook if you had at least 10 friends because there was no other content. So if you had 10 friends, you would at least stay on Facebook. And that was the goal. So the question then goes, how do you get your first 10 friends? So what Facebook did was when you sign up for Facebook, Facebook would prompt you the question, enter web email address, your web email password. We will take those credentials and we would scrape as many emails as we can find. With those email addresses, we would match them to Facebook accounts. If they are Facebook accounts, you can send friend invites to them. If they're not Facebook accounts, you can send Facebook invites to them. And this was extremely crucial for Facebook's growth. Back in the day, when I left the team, we were doing 5 million invites a day and about 3 million friend requests a day. This was extremely crucial for Facebook's growth. And this is the backend for all of this was actually built by the Malaysia team. Facebook acquired the Malaysian company to acquire this technology so that, one is so that we could better support it. And the second part is to also prevent competitors from using it as well. And yeah, so when I joined Facebook and I met people outside, say at LinkedIn, Ning, I think it was called Ning, this other social network. Yeah. They were all using the Malaysian libraries. Like where in the world? And they all complained when Facebook acquired the company and the libraries were all taken away. They all complained like now we don't have the support anymore. So it was a great move by Facebook Yeah, great move by Facebook 10 years ago. So yeah, I worked on this team for about 2 years. And the next team I worked on was called internet.org, still aligned with how to increase the number of users on Facebook. When Facebook hit 1 billion monthly active users, Facebook is thinking about how do we get the next 1 billion. The problem with that is internet access. At the time, there was only 2 billion people had internet access, and the rest of the world just didn't have internet access. So we actually had to get internet access to people in order to get more people on Facebook. That was the problem. So there's 3 ways of doing it. The first way was via satellites. The second way was via drones. And the third way was via mobile carriers. So the mobile carriers is already using existing infrastructure. The other two is building new infrastructure. Mobile carriers covered 95% of the world's population, and it was really good. It was really good at increasing Facebook's user growth. Yeah. Unfortunately, so right after I left Facebook, there's just some news. The satellite blew up in September 2016, and the drone crashed not too long after. So I like to blame that the failure of this project is because I left. Yeah. So that's quick blurb about what I've been what I did at Facebook. Anything you would like to know? Any questions?
How about Xfers?
Xfers. So I don't have slides about Xfers. Xfers has been a very interesting experience. I joined Xfers in December 2019, and I've been managing. I managed 3 teams. So Xfers is a fintech company. We deliver several solutions. One is a blockchain solution. If you want to withdraw money or purchase crypto, you can go through Xfers in Singapore. Another thing we're building is KYC solutions as well. Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll just take that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we also build KYC solutions. So this is stemming from being a fintech company. With a fintech company, we need to know our customers. So we also provide KYC solutions to crypto companies and also to Indonesia. What else do I do for that? And we're also building a product in Indonesia called SafeCash. So SafeCash helps to do interbank transfers in Indonesia, because in Indonesia, it's not cheap. It's actually quite expensive to transfer money between banks. So that's another solution we offer as a cheap means to transfer money. Yeah, and also to help with agentless banking. So agentless banking is also, you don't have to go to the bank. You can just go to some agents, some individual who can help you out with your banking needs.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Maybe we can open up to Q&A.
Hi, Aizat. My name is Kendrick. I'm from Batch 1. Thank you for coming here to share with us your experience today. My first question to you actually is, so I know that you wanted to give back to the community, but was there a timeline when you were working at Facebook? Like when do you realize that you didn't want to work? You didn't want to work at Facebook anymore.
Oh,
I know it must not have been a month where you just decided it was a thought out process. And when do you arrive at that point?
That's a bit of a long story. So I've always wanted to give back to the community. I was brought up in open source, and in open source, you give back, right? I only got here because I stood on the shoulders of others. Like we're using open source libraries. We have a lot of people to thank for that. We're using open source operating systems. We have a lot of people to thank for this. So I've always liked giving back to the community. That's always been there. The story of Facebook is a little bit more complicated. I did have one timeline for myself. When I hit 30, I thought of taking a break. And it also coincided with my departure at Facebook as well. But essentially, I started getting burned out at Facebook. My own personal problem, I don't know how to say no. So, if someone asked for help, I would help them. Right, but that would also stretch myself a little too far. And yeah, long story short, I burned myself out by overextending myself. Facebook was also not cooperative with me taking a break as well. So I was like, nah, I'm done here. It's time to make a move. Yeah, and the Facebook I joined is also very different than the Facebook I left. When I joined Facebook, Facebook only had 2,000 employees. When I left Facebook, Facebook had 25,000 employees. Yeah, so that's over a 10x increase. The people who joined Facebook at my time were really, how do we make a difference in the world? The people who joined the people who joined when I left, it's a job, which is fine, but the mindset mentality is also a little bit different as well.
Thank you, Aizat.
Sure.
Hi, Aizat. This is Alvin. I noticed that you founded this company or website called Deep Thought.
Sure.
And you have worked on it for about 4 years previously. I thought that it was quite interesting when I went to explore the page. It seems like it's asking ourselves questions. Maybe you could share more about that and what is the purpose of that website? And what motivated you to do it?
I'm just sharing my screen so everyone's a little bit more aware of what's being discussed. So what motivated me here? I've always been someone with an existential crisis. I've always been growing up with an existential crisis for whatever reason it is, like asking myself questions. Prior to leaving Facebook, I was going to hit 30. I don't know how many of you hit that point before, but I was going to hit 30. I'm like, oh my God, is my life going on track the way I'm hoping for? So this existential dread was hitting me, this soul searching. And it really started originally with a spreadsheet. I was asking myself these questions. I'll just stop for now. Stop share, right? So asking myself these questions, what do I want to be the very best at? Just trying to understand myself. I was going through a huge period of an identity crisis, to be more specific. Am I enjoying my job? This idea of burnout, who am I? And it was more exacerbated by my time at Facebook, leaving Facebook as well, because a huge part of my identity was tied to my job, to my career. And maybe you guys understand for you career switchers as well. A huge part of my identity was tied to this job. In Malaysia, when I joined in Malaysia, I was only one of three engineers in Malaysia. And out of the three, I was the most social one. So everyone in Malaysia knew me. At least if you're in the IT scene, they referred to me as the Facebook guy. So it was a huge part of my identity. And what happens when you don't lose your job? What happens when you lose your job? When you lose that part of you, which takes up maybe more than 50% of your life, right? So I was going through this huge identity crisis, trying to figure myself out. I originally had written just questions down in a list, in a Google Doc. And then that Google Doc became a spreadsheet. And then I realized, why don't I solve this problem as a software engineer? Because that's what I do, right? I'm a software engineer. So let's solve this problem as a software engineer. And I just started asking myself a list of questions just to understand and observe myself a little bit more. Right now, I'm at 87,000. I do add a few more every day, but it's definitely been a very interesting experience. So I'll just start with usually my first three questions is this three. Well, maybe more importantly, this one. So when I left Facebook, I'm very blessed. I'm very privileged to join Facebook at a great time because I have the financial freedom not to work for a very long time. So if you don't have to work, what should you do with your life, right? That's a very hard question to answer. If I don't have to work, what should I do? I'm still sort of struggling with it. But one of the things that came up to that was this question: what do you want to be the very best at? And the only way I got to this question was because Pokemon Go became popular, and in the opening lines of the theme song, Ash Ketchum says, "I want to be the very best that ever was, like no one was before." Right. So, so I thought to myself, what do I want to be the very best at? Maybe I can use it as a goal, as a North Star, just to guide me forward. And it's been a very interesting journey, just asking people. I've gotten a bunch of answers as well from, in this case, 22 different, okay, there's a bug, 22 different people. And I use these questions to sort of understand myself a little bit more, to guide me. I think what's very interesting, though, is definitely asking other people the same question as well, because once you have the answer can guide you moving forward. And I think what's interesting is it's okay if your answer changes, but to know your answer changes means that other people's answers may change as well. So it might gives you a little bit of hope. Yeah, so that's a little bit of my story about deep thought, really me trying to sit down and understand myself a lot. I like this question, what would you teach your children? Because this sort of tells me, if I ask you right now, you'll probably tell me what is the greatest lesson in life you've learned so far. And I think I've gotten a lot of very interesting answers from a lot of individuals out there as well. Yeah. So this is just part of my soul searching journey, me to understand myself. When I hit 10,000 questions, I was like, oh, okay. I felt like I understood my own behaviors a little bit more. Now that I'm at 87,000, it's not about it's more about unlocking different perspectives. Like, how does this perspective help me move ahead?
Awesome.
I asked from Pokemon, what do you want to be the very best? Sydney, yeah. So I like Musa's answers as well. Yeah. So a lot of soul searching, and I think the biggest part is the identity crisis part. Really just trying to understand yourself and how you got here. And sometimes you may not even have the words for it. Reading other people's answers, it's like, oh my God, this person is describing exactly what I'm going through. I just didn't know how to express it.
Thanks, Aizat. Yeah, I think the questions here are very insightful because after we post these questions, we realize that there are so many people that have the same questions like us. And sometimes we have certain different perspectives depending on our situation, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it will be, I think it's interesting to know of others' perspectives to give you like a broader perception of life in general. Yeah, so I think this is a great website.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's knowing other people's perspectives, and I think also returning back to your older self. I think if you answer a question, like I answered this, this one's 2019. Oh no, that's not it. This one. So this one I wrote in 2016. It becomes a commit. It's like a commit in your repository of like, this is who I am back in 2016. Have I grown from there? I think that's another really interesting aspect to look at it. You can think of this as journaling, as blogging, but to use the question as a prompt and to revisit it, I think is a really powerful thing. I think people don't look, personal opinion, I think people don't look enough at keywords as well. So let's say career. Right, so within career, what questions, do you even know you can even ask yourself these questions to begin with, right? Yeah, that's another part. I think most people don't even realize that they can ask themselves these questions and ask other people that. So it actually gives you a vocabulary to discuss these things.
Yeah, I think these career questions are probably relevant to most of us here, and I would like to take a look at them during my free time.
It's mostly me answering, but you feel free to drop your own answers as well. Yeah.
Hi, Aizat. I'm Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi. Thanks for being here to share your experience with us. Earlier, you mentioned that very much early on in your career, you experienced imposter syndrome, and I was wondering, at what point did this go away, and what made it go away?
Confident. I mean, just reassurance. It's definitely gone away. Like maybe within the last few years only. Yeah, maybe within the last few years, but it's really more on working on myself. That goes back to the questions and the knowing yourself better, knowing my limitations, knowing my strengths, even accepting the imposter syndrome, right? Using that fear as a guide, because behind fear is growth, right? So using that fear as a guide to know that, all right, if I pass this, I will gain a level up. So it's really a lot of it is working on yourself, working on pushing your boundaries. First, recognizing that fear or recognizing that paralysis, that hesitance, that reluctance, resistance, recognizing it. And first part is probably the acknowledgement. Thank you for existing. Thank you for teaching me that this is the guiding path that I should probably go through. And hopefully after it, I will have learned something from it, because I've always liked personal growth. And I know that on the other side of all of this is always growth. So I try to direct my energy towards that.
Thanks for sharing.
Hello, Aizat. This is Joe here.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah, I have a question for you, and I'm really not sure if this is a question. The thing is, I've been hearing this word 10x engineers. So is there really something called 10x engineer in software engineering? If so, what defines it? Like how an engineer is a 10x engineer and somebody is just an engineer?
I mean, this is a loaded. Thanks for your question. I definitely understand where you're coming from. This is a bit of a loaded. I do feel that there is, but I also feel that there's nothing stopping other people from achieving it as well. Right. So I think what can help you achieve that is what habits do you have when you encounter a problem? Kai also mentioned, what are the ways to learn and tools out there, right? So I don't think a lot of people question the tools that they use or the way they approach a problem. I'm just going to quickly show you something as well. So I think deep thought is a great example of a tool I literally built to help me with my existential crisis, my identity crisis, right? I literally built this for myself. It actually doesn't matter if nobody else uses it. As long as it helps me to better understand myself, I win. I still win in the end. So this is one of the tools I use. How do you break down a problem, I think, is also pretty essential as well. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing first because there is some private stuff. Let me try to find something out. Public notes. Getting discovered on LinkedIn. Right. So, all right. Well, this is public notes, so this one I can definitely share. Right. So I use Notion. I am trying to be more systematic. The keyword here is being systematic about how I approach problems. This is my public list of stuff. So everything here is public. When I encounter something I want to research or do, I will most likely create a new table. It just becomes a document and I work inside this document. So this is like me learning Golang. I keep all my best practices inside here. And if I ever need to share this with someone, I'm trying to learn, I'm working on a new project inside Xfers. I want to say we should use Golang for this project. I can just share them this document. Yesterday, I literally shared, so I have cats. As you can see, I have cats. And yesterday, where is it? Yesterday, I can't, it's in a private one. Yesterday, I did an interview and the guy has a cat and he wants to move to Singapore as well. So I shared with him, here are my notes on how you have to import a cat into Singapore. But the key part is being systematic about the problem sets, about how you solve the problem. Plex and Raspberry Pi, creating a React app if I run out of memory, mental health in Malaysia, Flutter on Visual Studio Code. So being systematic about how you approach the problem, I think really helps to really differentiate between an okay engineer and a really good engineer as well. I think the next, and so being systematic, so one keyword I look at when I think about senior engineers is their ability to handle uncertainty, right? When we're working with software, there's a lot of uncertainty. What are the requirements? Am I using a new language? Can this language or framework support what I need to do? There's a lot of unknowns out there. You can always approach it with what you're familiar with, but what you're familiar with may not be the best approach. So are you asking yourself, should I be using something different? So let's say I do something new. Let's say I have a problem. All right, so then I'll do what is the problem statement? I don't know. Let's say server process. Oh, let's start with this. Our video recording server. Recording server is stops recording after 5 minutes. So that's an actual problem I'm encountering right now. Theories, right? So theory 1, disk is out of memory. That could actually be a literal thing. Theory 2, network bandwidth is maxed out. All right. Theory 3, RAM is out as well. Theory 4, bad hardware. I don't know if that's actually could just be. So when I, let's say video recording server stops, what are the potential issues out there? And I'll potentially look at, all right, is it theory 1? Okay, let me check the disk usage. No, it's not there. All right, so what is the command? df-h stat. Network bandwidth, check Google Cloud console, right? So, and now that I have this problem statement and all these things listed out, I have a lot of junior engineers under me. And now I have this problem statement in a document. This document is always accessible. They can pick up this document whenever I want. I've just increased my ability to share my knowledge. Going back to the open source and giving back as well, this has helped me to level up my engineers by helping to break down the problem, talk about it. I literally have, you can't go, if I have the commands here, there's very little you can go wrong if you don't follow the instructions. But this has helped me to really help my engineers to level up. I make a lot of tools. A recent tool I made, I think when you solve problems, sometimes you don't have the best tool for the problem. So the question then goes, do you have the best tool? And if you don't have the best tool, should you make the tool as well? This is a recent tool I built. It does a basic health check. It checks against different endpoints to see if they're up, and it will ping me on Slack. This is also open source. You can actually just go in and check the source code right here. So I build these tools, not just health check. I share my knowledge. Right, so this is all me. I think the greatest part about us being software engineers is we can scale ourselves. It's cheap to copy something, right? It's cheap to distribute it. Why aren't we distributing it even more? Why aren't we creating more? So I have a whole knowledge base out here. I share with my engineers, with my staff. I build tools for myself. This helps me to keep up to date. There's a bunch of open source tools as well. Yeah, so this is something I don't see a lot of engineers do, and I would really wish they do, because I think it can really help them to level up their approach to solving problems. Yeah, so all of these are different problems here and there. Quickly, like WhatsApp a stranger, very simple. I don't want to, sometimes I don't want to add this contact to my address book. I just want to message them, right? Okay, I just plug this thing into there and it opens up WhatsApp. It's a very simple HTML page, solves a problem for me. If you do photography and you're familiar with the golden hour, the time, the sweet spot when to take a picture, right? there's a lot of clanky tools out there, but I just did a geolocation. All right, based on my geolocation, this is the sweet spot, right? I reinterpreted the data in a much easier way for me to use. This is all React. It's over Bootstrap. Very straightforward. What else is interesting here? Google Maps doesn't have an easy way for me to copy addresses. So let's say, let's just say my apartment lah, CNR and CTDI. Now I have a simple way of copying this and sending it to people. So these tools take me 15, 30 minutes to build, but they really help me to make my life a little bit more easier. Yeah. So that's what I don't see a lot of other engineers really doing, which I think they should. They should be thinking about the tools available to them and how can they work on improving their tools? How can they work on improving their knowledge as well? Going back to note-taking, so while I use Notion, I built my own note-taking tool over here as well. I don't know, I have to be careful because some of this is private, but essentially the way it acts out is it's a feed of, instead of a one single document, I have all the documents open and it's just a feed, like a social feed. I can just scroll through and open up all my documents based on a particular tag. Yeah. So these are the tools I built to help my life on a daily basis. And I'd use them, at least the logbook, the deep thought, Notion on a daily basis. Yeah. Let's see.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Hey, Aizat. My name is Jit Kon. Yeah, and I have a question regarding, I think somewhere on the web, I think is this a particular podcast that you did with someone. Yeah, so you mentioned that.
Alex?
Yeah, I think it's Alex. Yeah.
All
so
right.
You mentioned that data is like something that's, not emphasized enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any, anecdotes about that and, how we should view, problems relating to data? Yeah.
Is there more context to that question?
Right.
I don't remember. Yeah, if there's more context, I could answer better. But is there more context to that question?
Yeah, I guess like in the podcast interview, you mentioned like, I think, let me scroll up a bit, data. Yeah, so I think there was a bit of discussion between like data-driven decision and non-data-driven decision.
Oh.
And for non-data driven decision, sometimes you say like sometimes you have to go with your guts. But on the other hand, sometimes there's so much data, right? And people just overanalyze on certain aspects of the data that they have on hand, and they don't go anywhere. So I guess the question might be, how do you, given like a set of data, right? How do you optimize for the objective that you want to achieve? Yeah. How should you look at this set of data and come up with some interesting insights that could be applicable for the company or from an engineering standpoint? Yeah.
I don't think there's a golden answer to that question, really. I think it's also really trying to understand what is the goal you're trying to achieve by looking at the data, right? I think a little bit more context to this as well. So when I returned back to Malaysia in 2016, what I noticed, let me see if I can find a picture, but what I noticed in Southeast Asia is we were not data driven at all. We didn't use our data. We had the data, but we didn't maybe worship it. It's maybe not the right word, but back at Facebook, around the engineering tables, you would have monitors and monitors of the charts, like, all right, this is the health of whatever statistic we're looking at, right? So those monitors really help to emphasize how important this data to us. Like at Facebook, every morning, I would get a report. Okay, we increased our DAU by 700,000 people. We had people who just specifically look at maybe one single, maybe it was too narrow focused, but a narrow focus helps to increase the numbers, right? So we would look at this data and think, all right, so if this experiment increased it by 5% and this experiment increased it by 3%, we should be running with the original, the first experiment, right? I don't know how many of us are running experiments here. I feel like we're not. But of course, Facebook's in a great position where we get the volume to run experiments. But even still, looking at the data, looking at what data we have and making sure that we're paying attention to it, I think is not done enough. Yeah, definitely overseas, you see in the Silicon Valley offices, there's monitors and monitors of dashboards. I don't even see that around here.
Then how do you think we can maybe better incorporate this into our workflows? Yeah, or is it just like a cultural thing?
That's a great question, right? So when you're building the product, you should agree. So the Xfers product, a great example. Xfers is out for 6 years. A lot of the engineers at Xfers, it's their first company, so they don't even know what to build properly, right? So the way they engineered the database tables is it made it really hard to report data on. So even before you build the product, this is something you should be thinking, what sort of data do we want to get out of the product so that you're building your tables correctly to get those data out. Yeah, I would definitely think about that. What data do you want out? Yeah.
What's an example of that? Like, how would you build a table in a way that you could kind of get the right data out?
Well, let's just say we had one table with like 100 fields. This table was just way too overloaded. This table supported multiple use cases when it should probably have only supported one use case. And then the different use cases should have been in different tables as well, maybe. All right. It's knowing when to break those relationships up and when to keep them together. Yeah, definitely the early engineers, I mean, no fault of theirs, but if they had engineered the tables in a much easier fashion, it would have been made a lot easier to produce our business intelligence from it.
Got it.
Yeah, thanks for your insights.
Yeah. Hi, Aizat. This is Alvin again.
Hi.
Hi. Maybe I would like to find out a bit more of how you lead your teams in Xfers. So I was wondering, how do you usually go about giving feedback to the junior engineers? And are there like one-to-one sessions, or how are feedback sessions carried out regularly?
So I do have one-on-ones with my engineers every 2 weeks. And I've noticed, the thing I noticed about one-on-ones, more about the frequency of one-on-ones. The frequency of one-on-ones really depends on the engineer's ability to grow as well. With struggling engineers, you need it more frequent, right? You need to check on them more frequently. With more senior engineers, you probably need to check in less frequently, but you're asking very different questions as well. So I think the frequency of one-on-ones is also very important depending on the level of the engineer or what they're going through. Even a senior engineer, I've had to increase the frequency if they're struggling a little bit. So that's specifically with the frequency. The first part is also expectations. So let me go through, I have data on this. Well, not data, but I have information. Right, the ladder. So let me show you, I can't show you the career ladder at Xfers, but I can show you career ladders at other companies, right? So share screen, boom, right. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, the first one is Mozilla. So this is Mozilla's career ladder, and the key career ladder competency matrix. But the key thing to look at is expectations. Let me just share this with you guys in the chat. I think that might be easier. How do I, chat, all right, there we go. All right, so there is a level, software engineer 1 is like entry level all the way up to what they call a fellow engineer. So there's different levels here you can follow. This is meetup.com. This is Duo. So this is a lot easier to read. Right, so there's different levels. So the different levels really helps to set the expectations. For a junior engineer, entry-level engineer, we're not expecting much from them. We're really expecting you to be able to complete small tasks within the day. The scope of your work is like a few days, nothing too long. The more senior you get, the scope of your work comes to like a week. So you're less hands-off, or you get less task, and you're supposed to sort of figure out the task yourself. Our senior engineers, your tasks are 1 to 2 months long, right? So that's in a nutshell how we do. We don't have, the work we have right now don't really require engineers working maybe 6 months to a year on a project. So that's the biggest difference between, say, Southeast Asia and maybe overseas. Our projects are still, in a sort of ways, relatively small, to a few months, and not these big long-term projects. And that really helps to set the expectations, because when you're working on a one-year project, you are the one who has to break down the task, to communicate and to delegate that down. How hands-off you are. So I would just look at this as a guide to, here's a great one, right? So time horizon of the sprint. Level 1 is 1 sprint. This level 7 architect is a 2-year project, right? And that 2-year project could be something like, how do we architect our data centers to increase throughput or something, right? That would be the level you're probably looking at. Anything else about how I lead the team? I usually use this as my guide. Well, not this Duo per se. I give feedback on a regular, I try my best to give it back on a regular basis. Are they performing well? How do they, is there room for improvement? I just try to see what feedback I can give and what areas of help do they need. And sometimes it's not even career help. Sometimes I have some engineers where they're purely technical. All they want to talk about is technical stuff, which is great. But there's some people, who have that crisis, that life crisis, identity crisis, who are just lost. And you have, in that case, the shoulder you give is not on the technical side. The shoulder you have to provide is that guidance on, all right, this is how you should navigate that. Or maybe not how you should navigate it, but this is how I navigate it. And maybe you can use this way as well. Because for those kind of people, their blockers are not their work. Their blockers is like a mental blocker, which they just need to unblock in one way or another. Could be imposter syndrome, but I think the key word here is doubt. There's doubt about their abilities. There's doubt about whether they can achieve or not. So you have to give them guidance or reassurance, or just help them through their journey.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing how you conduct your one-to-one sessions. Maybe a follow-up question to that is, has there ever been any instances where your junior engineers can't solve a problem, and when they approach you or senior engineers for solutions, and sometimes maybe you guys can't figure it out as well?
Yeah.
How would you extend the time to search for a solution, or would you try to think of an alternative solution which might not be better to solve the problem? Yeah.
I mean, it depends. At the end of the day, it depends. Do you have the time to search for a better solution? And if you don't have the time, can you implement a hack, right, that temporarily unblocks them? It really depends. There's no clear answer on that. There are times when I've had to do both. There's times when I've had to recognize that there's a very strange bug right now, but we don't have the time to solve it. So we will delay solving it now. We'll delay solving it now. And then when I do have more time, I will go down and try to figure it out.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway today, that I will use this strategy to implement in my future work as well.
Yeah, I think the key part to think about, you can always look at it as yes and no. You can be very Boolean or black and white about it, but sometimes there's a lot of middle ground as well. It's like, all right, I'll spend 15 minutes. I'll spend maybe 15 minutes trying to quickly solve it. If we can't solve it and I don't have another 3 hours to spare, I'll implement a quick hack to unblock you, but we have to revisit. We'll note this down and revisit it when we can. And then you try to be very specific about it. You say, in the code base, you might put a to-do line, like, hey, this is to unblock this problem, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to write it down. If not,
yes,
you might just forget about it and then move on to other work.
Absolutely. Especially if you have hacks in the system, I do recommend writing a comment. This is a hack for these reasons, but at least you understand why you implemented a hack.
Sorry, can I just build on Alvin's question? I mean, based off your response earlier on. So you mentioned, like, sometimes it's about the doubt that's affecting the person's performance, right? So, what are your, what would you say is some of the most effective ways for someone to self-regulate that, try to like dispel their own doubts in themselves? Yeah, because I think like for software engineers, we tend to be stuck in our own head quite a lot, right? So how do we self-regulate that? Yeah.
I think it's not also just about self-regulation. I mean, it's some keywords here would be like mindfulness, meditation, awareness, observation. Can you take a step back from what you're currently feeling, right? It's like, all right, this doubt, I sometimes call it just paralysis. So this paralysis exists, right? But can I take a step back and just examine it for a moment, or just understand in everything? This is my perspective. Everything in life has a pros and cons, right? A lot of things in life is a double-edged sword. As I mentioned earlier, I think fear is a great guide as well. There's growth behind fear. So then the question is, what is the benefits of doubt? Doubt serves a purpose, right? Insecurities serve a purpose. They're supposed to help provide a bit of a cushion, a bit of a safe ground. Don't do something you shouldn't be doing. So it's recognizing that insecurities serve a purpose, and I think knowing when you should listen to those insecurities and when you shouldn't listen to those insecurities as well. When you should listen to those doubts and when you shouldn't listen to those doubts. Should you jump off a 10-story building? Definitely not. But that's what your doubt is trying to save you from. So acknowledging the benefits of doubt might be a great start. Understanding where it comes from, understanding its source, understanding what it's trying to help you achieve, what it's trying to protect you from. Giving thanks to it might be another approach to it. Appreciating it, but then after recognition, appreciation is just it's looking on the benefits of it. Like, all right, simple example, if I talk to the girl, I will at least take that chance and give that chance, right? Yeah, I think, but if you never talk to the girl, you've thrown away all your chances. Yeah, but at least you can be proud of yourself for saying, at least I took the chance.
Cool.
And so this is my own personal experience. When I grew up, I could not talk to women. I was afraid of women. But after much practice, I'm much better at it now. Yeah.
Cool. Love to see your blog post, if any, on how to approach women, if you have.
You just say hi. Just say hi.
Like, I don't know, do you hold a drink in your hand or something,
Just say hi.
Just say hi. Yeah, I think you can make it. Yeah, you have very nice teeth, so yeah, probably a reason for success.
Just say hi. Yeah, that's all it begins with. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and so I think we have time for maybe one wrap-up question. Maybe I'll take this one, which is, Aizat, if you have any general advice for career switchers who are approaching software engineering and the tech industry for the first time, what would that advice be as they jump into this new industry and navigate their new career?
The advice, I think that asking for help is really important, right? No, just ask for help. Ask for help. Actually, I wrote this down. Learn to manage yourself. I think a lot of this is really, to talk about doubt, to talk about imposter syndrome, is learning to manage yourself. The biggest thing limiting us is really ourselves. I feel that has been a big problem for me. And I think if you get to learn to manage that, learn to ask for help, those sort of things will really help to unblock you. You guys are very lucky. When I started this, there was no YouTube, there was no GitHub. We had SourceForge, and that wasn't the best. Yeah, so you guys are very privileged for the resources available. Yeah. So I would just utilize the resources, know when to ask for help, know when to reach out, learn to manage yourself, learn when to power through or when to take a break even, because sometimes that's what we need to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aizat.
All right. No, thank you, Kai.
That was amazing. Thanks so much for the advice.
Thank you.
And the stories. Yeah, that was really helpful.
All right.
Thanks for the advice, Aizat.
Thank you.
And I see that you left your number in the chat. So hopefully we'll see some students coming your way.
Yeah, and Kenrick, just to respond, but I don't want to remember the URL. I just want to have a simple page, even on my phone when I click it. Yeah, you're correct. And that's what my thing does. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Aizat.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.